The Crooked Epic, 1, In, 1, The End of Maniacal Madness, 6, Alex, The Cage, 6A, 1. Draken's satellites, Motu and Toro, carry out his commands with predilection. They mimic his evil wrath. When night had fallen and weird, Ted was adamantly preparing his monologues, imagining himself wangling through conversation scenarios and memorizing various points in his complex story. But by morning, after deep sleep had erased his sense of immediacy and danger, the investigation was pitifully useless. Sitting with the detective, Ted was kept on a limited number of questions involving his missing brother, and more was said about his witnessing Mr. Lyle Hurst's strange murder than anything. Ted had awoken with marred vigor to help his brother until increased pressures and contrived stares from the investigator and his partner. Detective Blake Plimpton and Detective Toll Gettinger were both heaping their unwarranted suspicions and orchestrated the undermining of Ted's feelings of unspeakable guilt. Soon, Ted was strongly subduing any initiative to admit a lack of innocence. By 9:30 a.m., Ted had already whittled his testimony to bare sketches, and his mind became sluggish. The lamenting of his lost mentors was not as convincing as hoped, and Ted became desperate as statements were recorded. First, Detective Plimpton asked if Ted was alone outside the barn at their house the day Mr. Lyle Hurst was murdered. Ted's answer explained that only Mrs. Wilson and his father were inside, waiting for him to retrieve groceries. Then, he was asked to identify the man who had kidnapped him, and Detective Plimpton handed Ted a picture of Barry Reeves, which Ted confirmed. At that time, Ted had already made it clear what had happened when he had arrived, so when the detective asked him if he had seen anyone inside the barn, Ted told him about the giant rats. However, they convinced Ted to make an official statement describing them as wild animals the size of large dogs. When he asked Ted to explain where Barry Reeves had taken him, Ted described the cave on the hill. Ted hoped he would be able to lead them to where Alex had been lost. That was all the questioning. Detective Plimpton told Ted that Darren had been located at Jacob's house nearby. It was a great relief to Ted. Detective Plimpton asked the father to speak in private, so Ted was dismissed and left the den. The remainder of Ted's daytime was spent unwinding from the tenseness of the interview and with little communication between his father and him. Encyclopedias helped use as much energy as possible directly after Ted left the den room. He was studiously spending time in his bedroom until the afternoon when his appetite began to catch up to him. Later in the day, he would finish The Tomb in the Weird Tales volume lent to him by his brother. After the morning, their father spent the afternoon in his study and spent half with the detectives and half in the barn cleaning up after Sunday's ambulance. However, midnight hours had just struck in Hobb, where Alex was encaged.